Good morning, Lowestoft. This is Esther from the Lowestoft Town Chaplaincy team, checking in as I do every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to bring a live thought for the day, some pondering, chance to connect and say hello, and to just think through some of the stuff that's going on while we're in lockdown, coming out of lockdown, feeling like you're no longer living in lockdown because you're back at work or you always have been, as you try and work out who to see and how to see them. Now it's raining, and as we just think about how our emotional and spiritual life affects us throughout everything, lockdown or everything. So how are you this morning? Are you all right? I feel really flustered this morning, I have to say. It's rainy, it's dull, it's Monday, it's time to school the kids. Not quite sure what's going on this morning. How are you? Let us know how you are. My thoughts have been all over the place. It's taken a bit of centering myself this morning to come to any sort of clarity of what I want to say or what I'm thinking about or what's going on. But what's come to me this morning is something about inclusion, something about connection as we start the week, and yeah, so that's sort of where my thoughts have gone. And my daughter, I've got two daughters. My youngest daughter had a fly into her room the other week, like a massive blue bottle. And she was absolutely terrified. You'd have thought the world was ending. She didn't know what was going on. Oh my goodness, the screams. We had to apologise to the neighbours and everything. And now, as a result of that, obviously we've talked about how a fly won't hurt you and what their function is in the world and all of that. But she is terrified. And so on a sunny day, on a whatever day, she goes around closing all the windows, closing all the doors. Like literally she walks into a room, closes the door. If I open a window to let some air in, she closes the window. Like that is what she's doing because she is so desperate to keep the flies out. And on a hot day it's really annoying, and on a day when you've cooked like a chicken like yesterday and the house stinks and you want to let some air in, it's really annoying. And we're trying to explain to her that we need to let the windows be open to let the air flow, to keep the heat down, to keep smells out. Plus it's really difficult to move from room to room if all the doors are shut behind you and in front of you all the time. It's really claustrophobic. But it's her fear, and in her fear she's trying to keep herself safe by keeping everything else out and keeping everything shut. And this morning her new plan for the day was that one day we could have the windows and doors open and tomorrow we could have them shut, and we could alternate it, which really makes sense to her tiny mind. It means she feels safe, it means she feels in control, she knows what to expect. But it totally misunderstands the purpose of having windows open, which is when you need to let air in and out, for movement, for the smells of dinner to leave, for fresh air to replace it and all that. And she's 5, and it struck me that we aren't much different as adults, are we? Like, we are scared of so many things, whether they are irrational, like the fear of a fly flying in our room, whether they're grounded in an experience that we've had, or they're fears of things that might happen. See, a big blue bottle really did get stuck in Maya's room, but now every fly, every open window is a fear, because it's become a fear of all the possibilities. And fear is really disabling, isn't it? Like walking from room to room for Maya at the minute is a fearful experience. And we get scared, don't we? We get really fearful about things, and in response, like sometimes we want to control things, we want to make it safe. I'm not talking about like psychological phobias or anxiety disorders or anything, but just in general, like when I'm scared I might retreat, I might go into fix it mode, I might decide to run away or go around closing doors or windows. But through she's here right now actually. Hello, it's time to go, baby girl. Look, there's lots of people. Yeah, go and tell daddy, okay? Go and tell daddy because I'm on here. See you in a minute. See, she's here and she's very cute. But back to it, back to fear. We might we might just want to close the windows against things that we're scared of, mightn't we? We want to close the windows against people we see as a threat, against situations that might push us, against growth, against development, because life is scary. But when we're only looking through windows, often our view's really tinted, isn't it? And it's limited, and it just really distorts our fears. And as people protest worldwide, do you know what? I think they're daring to open their windows, like to be open to newness and to growth and to breathe in different air, and to move from a protective position, a guarding spot, a position of safety, to maybe a new viewpoint, to realise the limitations of a position where fear is our motivation. And I suppose there's also the sense in which we're having to open our windows as lockdown is lessening, aren't we? We've shut them against fear, some of us. And as we open them, maybe some of us are looking to just jump out and run and breathe and be there, whereas others of us are just wanting to shut those windows back up, and every space in between, because we're scared and we don't know what's going on. And so all of this, I guess, just made me ponder this morning, like the positions that we put ourselves in, the fear that keeps us with closed windows. And I was struck by how Jesus, because I follow a Jesus path and a Jesus tradition, and one of the things I love about Jesus is that he opened all the windows, like metaphorically speaking. So he was a real person in a real time. So he was Jewish. He grew up in a culture where your neighbour was your fellow chosen Jew and everybody else was other, where women had no status, where there were strict rules about who was clean and unclean, who was in and who was out. Yet, as Jesus, as God walked the earth, he opened all the windows on that fear, Like he allowed women to be part of his group. He gave them status and a voice. He took tax collectors, like those people who you just wouldn't trust, those people in your life, or those people you assume you wouldn't trust. He took them and he had them as part of his group. He met Roman officials, like those people who represent power and authority and control and oppression. He talked to them, he healed them, he invited them. He took Samaritan women, like those people from that culture that is at odds with yours, that like you really don't understand, that you have a lot of antagonism towards. He took them. He took prostitutes in. Do you know what? People who have a lifestyle that you just innately want to judge it because it feels wrong to you. He invited them and he wanted to heal them. He touched people with infectious diseases, like people who were unclean, who represented everything that shouldn't be. He took them in. He opened the windows, on gender discrimination, on racial prejudice, on class and religious discrimination. He modelled opening the windows, on taking down the boundaries that keep us in fear, keep us in our positions and our self-righteous opinions about how everything should be. He talked of loving your enemies, like that's massive. That's like loving the person who racially abuses you. That's like loving the person who oppresses you. And that doesn't mean saying it's okay. Jesus never said it was okay. In fact, he challenged all of our prejudices and our control and all the ways that we are selfish and manipulative. He challenged all of it. But he talked about love as an action that opens windows, that breaks down barriers, that takes away fear, He talked of upside down kingdoms where those who serve are the first. It's not about power. He talked about thinking of yourself less, but that making you honoured and first. He talked about the first, those who think they're first being last and those who are last being first. He talked about seeds that grow into kingdoms of love and healing. So anything you ever see of Christianity or that religion that doesn't smell of all of that, that's not what Jesus was about. He wasn't about shutting the windows and keeping fear in place. He was about opening the windows and inviting and becoming and belonging and joining and accepting and challenging and growing and healing and forgiving and starting a new kingdom that changed all the stuff that keeps us in fear. All of that. It's different than what you hear normally, isn't it? I suppose, about religion and Christianity. Yeah. So I suppose my challenge to myself today, my challenge to my small person who you saw, is to open the windows, is to open the doors. You know, to we all have our prejudices, even if we think we're the most open people. We all have our fears, even if we're desperate for lockdown to finish, we're still scared. We have our things that make us scared. And maybe the first step is to unite in admitting where we've shut our windows, where our doors are locked. Do you know what I mean? What fears it is we're trying to keep out, even if it is a blue bottle, so that someone can say to you, do you know what? It's just a blue bottle. It won't hurt you. The first step is to acknowledge the fears and the prejudice and where we're stuck, and to look for support and help. And I totally believe that Jesus meets us in that, as he talked of a kingdom that breaks down fear. You know, like as people that followed him said, you know what, God doesn't give us fear. He gives us courage. He gives us sound mind. He helps us when we're freaking out. You know what I mean? Like, sound mind is what we need when the blue bottle means we can't go into another room. Sound mind is what we need when we're so scared and anxious and worried that we don't speak and we don't say it and we don't act in love. So yeah, that's my ramble for today. May you know today that where your windows are shut and your doors are locked because of fear, that Jesus comes to you and says, let me open it. Let me open that window, because I am about freedom and life. Where you are too scared to admit that you live in fear, may you take that first step of just saying, I've shut my windows, I've closed my doors on this because I can't cope with it. Can someone help me? And you'll find that there's so many other people that understand and that are with you in that. May you know the Jesus who opened the doors and windows and broke down the barriers of prejudice against everybody, who talked against institutional control, who challenged racial prejudice, who challenged gender prejudice and gave people a voice. May you know that he comes to you to give you a voice in your fear, to help you open your windows where you're stuck, and to help you see the world differently than you do at the minute. May we all just breathe in a chance to see the world differently than we do, and to find freedom and life and tiny seeds that grow into something of love and healing. I pray that for you today. I pray that you would know that truth and that freedom to open your windows. And where one of your windows is that you are closed off and just think the whole idea of faith and spirituality and Jesus and God is nonsense, where you are in that place, may you know that it's safe to open that window a crack and just to explore. And may you find what it is you're looking for. Take care today, Lowestoft. I will be back on Wednesday morning at 10:30 for the 10:30-ish, and the chaplains today will be venturing out for the first time since lockdown, and we're going to be praying for Lowestoft. You might think that's nonsense and rubbish, but we believe that God loves you and loves the people of Lowestoft, and so we're going to be praying for you today as we walk in pairs safely around, probably in the rain, and we will be praying for your situations, for your emotional health, for wisdom for how we can be good chaplains, and for a small kingdom of love and healing to grow in Lowestoft. Take care, everyone. See you on Wednesday. Bye.